Christian Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents God, Can We Chat? A daringly honest guide to growing closer to God, one doubt at a time, by Niki Hardy. Forward by Asharita Chuchu. Narrated by Niki Hardy. Dedication. For James, Sophie and Emma. When you find yourself at the crossroads of doubt and faith, may you discover that it's here where true intimacy with God begins, not ends. Doubts are the ants in the pants of faith. They keep it awake and moving. Frederick Buechner. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Jesus. Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. Forward. But how do we know? I asked, not for the first time. How can you say for sure that what we have today is the only inspired Word of God? As a Bible college freshman, I'd begun wrestling with some of the tenets of my faith. I wasn't doubting Jesus, not really, but I was questioning the religious assumptions that came along with my church upbringing. These weren't just fleeting thoughts. They burrowed deep into my soul, leaving me restless as I tried to reason my way through a labyrinth of convoluted questions. I worried how my missionary parents, mentors, and church friends back home would react to this personal investigation. Indeed, some brushed me off with pat answers. Others responded with nervous chuckles and vague reassurances, and still others expressed concern for my eternal salvation. Thankfully, a handful of my professors didn't flinch at my questions. They didn't try to silence my doubts or offer prepackaged answers. Instead, they created space for me to wonder, to wrestle, to dig deep. They modeled something profoundly freeing. Faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about learning to trust the one who knows all things. I didn't need certainty. I needed trust. And here's what I've discovered time and time again. Jesus is trustworthy. He's been faithful through every storm of doubt, every season of hurt. When I've experienced the betrayal of trust by someone close to me, when I've learned of corruption among leaders in my local church, when I've watched those who claim to follow Jesus act in ways that seem more about power than love, through all that, Jesus never wavered. He has proven himself to be steadfast and true, not because he gave me all the answers, but because he offered me himself, his very presence in the midst of the storm. Jesus is big enough to handle our biggest questions. He's kind enough to hold space for our wondering. And he is patient enough to listen to every sorrow and hurt we carry. I love the way Jesus describes himself as the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd doesn't abandon the sheep who wander. Instead, he goes after them. He calls them by name. He seeks them out, no matter how far they've roamed, and carries them gently back to safety. That's the Jesus I've come to know and trust, the one who meets us in our doubts, our fears, and even our defiance, and leads us home with tenderness and grace. This is the Jesus that Niki Hardy writes about in God, Can We Chat? If you've ever wondered whether your questions are too big or too messy for God, this book is for you. If you've ever hesitated to bring your raw, unpolished self before him, worried that you might not measure up, let me assure you, Niki knows exactly how you feel. And she writes as someone who's been there, not as an expert handing out answers from a distance, but as a fellow traveller who has wrestled with her own doubts and found Jesus to be trustworthy and true. I've had the privilege of walking alongside Niki as she brought this book to life. I've seen her pour her heart into these chapters with an honesty and vulnerability that's rare and refreshing. Writing a book is never easy, and writing a book like this, one that wrestles with the intersection of faith and doubt, takes a particular kind of courage. Niki has that courage. I've watched her wrestle with these words, turning them over and over in conversation and on the page, not because she wanted to get them perfect, but because she wanted them to be true. I've listened as she prayed for you, the listener, asking God to meet you right where you are in whatever questions or struggles you're facing. I've worked side by side with her, and I can tell you that she approaches her work as a writer with integrity, thoughtfulness.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?